Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your San Joaquin County Stockton AgVenture event. We welcome you guys this morning and thank you so much for being here. We're going to give everyone just a couple of seconds to join us and get all prepared. So while we do that, a couple of housekeeping things. This is a webinar style Zoom, so you will not see everybody's boxes like you normally would in a Zoom chat. You will only see the presentations that we are presenting out to you. So just keep that in mind. You are connected, you are in the right spot. Those of you who are joining us via YouTube, you can ask your questions live in the sidebar that comes up on the right-hand side. So feel free to ask us any questions that you have during our presentation. If you're on Zoom, you'll do that in the normal Q&A box. So just an overview of what we're going to do today. We are going to chat with some of your favorite AgVenture displays. So what will happen is we will play some audio and some visuals for you. And then after we're done, we'll ask them some of your questions. So be sure that you guys get those sent in to us. Once we've done all of our displays, we will then have like a roundtable discussion and we'll ask anybody any extra questions that we have left. So we're excited to have you guys. If you guys are students and your teachers have asked you to fill out your worksheet, be sure that you have that up and ready to go. It is a fillable worksheet, which means you don't have to print it. You can simply save it to your desktop. So while we give everybody a couple of more seconds to go here, why don't you guys tell us before your AgVenture day today, we asked you guys to go ahead and view some of our presentations online. So why don't you guys tell me what school you're from and what your favorite presentation was? We look forward to having you. It looks like we have about 48 participants. Good morning. We have several hundred of you, it looks like, joining us on YouTube. So we're excited to have you. Hi, Jessica. Good morning, Joseph. We look forward to having you. So this is going to be, we have a question already. This is going to be the display portion of your AgVenture field trip. So if you are a third grader, normally AgVenture is live and in person, as you know, and it's consistent of two parts. We have presentations, which are now online and viewable to you. We asked you to watch them before you came. And then we have the display portion. This is going to be the display portion of the field trip. So we look forward to having you. Hello. Fremont Lopez Elementary in Stockton, thank you for being here. Huerta, thank you for being here. Scholars is ready to learn. Presentation, nice to have you here. Hong Kingston, thank you guys for being here this morning. We look forward to having you and hope that you guys have a great field trip. So I want to save as much time as possible for your guys' questions. And I know that our volunteers are excited. They are here live, ready to answer your hard-hitting questions. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, Kennedy is here, Hong Kingston, primary year, San Joaquin. Thank you guys for being here. Oh my gosh, look at all of you. Well, welcome. My name is Krista McCoon. I am the San Joaquin County AgVenture Coordinator, and I appreciate you being here for our first virtual AgVenture field trip. I encourage y'all to fill out the worksheet, follow along, and enjoy the presentations we have for you. Looks like, oh man, so many of you guys are joining us. Thank you so much. Okay. Without further ado, I think we've had plenty of time for everybody to join, and we want to make sure we save time for you. Oh, I'm sure if you guys are like me, one of your favorite parts about agriculture is the livestock and the animals, right? And there are no bigger livestock animals than horses. So I think we should go out to one of our fellow horsemen and talk to her about her horse and see what the San Joaquin County Horsemen's Association has to say. Good morning, and let's get to it. Morning, Cadence.
Hi guys, I'm Cadence Gruno, and I'm the 2020-2021 San Joaquin County Horsemen's Association Junior Queen, and this is my horse Tonto. Today, we're going to be learning about the grooming and tacking up process. So grooming is really just about cleaning the horse, trying to get all the dirt and off of them. It's also about looking for like burrs or any sores that the horse may have, making sure they're not hurt or anything. So first, while grooming, we start with a curry comb. And with this, you just want to do tight or big circles. And this gets all the hair and dirt loose all across their body. So after that, we can go just straight in with a hard body brush and just swipe all of it off with no problem. After we brush them down, we want to take a mane and tail comb or brush. You can also use a hair brush, whatever you prefer, and just try and get all the dirt and untangle their hair. See if there's any burrs or stickers that could possibly be bothering them at all. Then after we brush their hair, we want to pick out their hooves. And this is so we can see if there's any dirt or rocks, any injuries or anything on their feet that might be uncomfortable to them. So you just want to come up beside him and grab their foot. He picks his feet up for me, which is great. And then you just go around his frog, which you can't see right now because there's so much dirt in his foot. But it's this little V right in the center. And it's a little sensitive, so you want to make sure to not hit it. And this just makes sure that all the rocks and stuff are out, which could be uncomfortable and potentially hurt them. Yep. And then we go to tacking up. So you always want to start with the pad. This is like a rubber kind of memory foam pad. It's a lot better for their backs because it gives them a lot more support. So you just kind of throw it on and make sure the pad is on their withers, which is this little kind of pokey thing right underneath their neck. So you just want to make sure it's all straight and that it's comfortable for them. And then we want to pick up our saddle. And this is what we sit on to ride. Make sure you don't fall off. And you just throw it up on them and make sure you place it down really gently. Because if you throw it on them and it lands really hard, it could potentially hurt their back. While putting on the saddle, you also want to make sure the saddle is over the pad because if it's not, it could rub and create sores or cuts. Then we want to bring our girths over. And this is what sits directly behind their shoulder, and this is what keeps the saddle on and tight. So we're going to go around to the other side. Make sure you know where your horse always knows where you are. That could be rubbing them, talking to them. Either way, you just always want to make sure they know where you are for safety. Then we want to come under their belly, make sure you have your hand right there, and grab your first girth. So then we grab our latigo, and this is what keeps the girth connected to the saddle and what keeps your saddle tight. So you take it, the latigo, and you put it through the first D-ring, or this silver kind of knot right there, and you pull it up. This isn't where you want to tighten it. Then you put it through the top one, and back through to make kind of like a loop, a big loop. And then after you put it through the second time, this is when we want to pull it tight and make sure the saddle isn't slipping around. So we want to pull it up tight, and this is where we do our knot. So this is a cowboy knot or a T-knot, whichever you prefer to do. So you want to cross it over so you have it straight out like this, cross it over so it makes a T, put it through a second time, and then bring it through this big loop so it looks like a T. You can also tighten it here, but it's tight enough for him to his preference. And then we want to come down here and grab our back girth. This you usually use on trail rides. You don't have to do like a whole latigo thing, and you just have the little strap, make sure it's tight enough. And with back girths especially, you want to make sure you can fit an entire fist underneath, because if it's rubbing and swinging around, it can really bother them. And then we're going to grab our breast collar, which makes sure that the saddle, especially on trail rides and you're going up hills and everything, it keeps the saddle forward. So we're going to go around here and grab that. And this just crosses over their chest and holds the saddle forward. You just connect it. You want to make sure you can fit both hands underneath it so it's not rubbing or pulling, which can really bother them. And then you take this bottom one and connect it to your first ring on your girth. And you also want to make sure you can fit at least a fist underneath it so it's not pushing in anything, which can also hurt them. After that, we are going to be grabbing our bridle.
Flip it back.
And at this point, we throw the reins around their neck just in case while we take the halter off, they can't run away, which he likes to try and do sometimes. He's a little stinker. And so after that, we just kind of want to take our halter off. This is a nylon halter. See, he likes to run away. He likes to try and think he can run, so. And then we just stand right against their neck, put our hand over their ears, hold the top of the bridle. At this point, we want to make sure all the straps are where they're supposed to be. Take our thumb and our middle finger and hold the bit, and then press with our pointer finger into their mouth, just like that. And you put both ears in, that, and you always want to make sure the bit is on the part where he has no teeth. And then we take the throat latch, which keeps the bridle from slipping forward if we were to be on a trail ride. And you also want to make sure you can fit at least your hand underneath it. And that's the grooming and tacking up process.
Wow, thank you. I don't know about you guys, but I certainly learned something, and that is quite an impressive animal you have there. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I actually have some questions from our third graders who have a lot of interesting questions. Okay, so Julian wants to know, how long have you been working with horses?
My family
Can you
has
hear
had
us? Oh,
horses. Yeah, it can. My family's had horses for my entire life. I've really been riding seriously for 3 years, and I've been competing for 2.
that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's see. Ashley Collins wants to know, do horses like the cold?
Some horses do. My horses do just because they have thick coats. And Tonto, the horse in that video, really loves the rain. You can't get him to stay in his stall if it's raining.
Wow, cool. Interesting to know. Okay, Ashley Collins has another question from a student. It says, when you first get a horse, do they let you put the saddle on, or do you have to train them to do that?
If you buy a horse that is already broke, which means you can put a saddle on and ride, then yes, you can put it on right away. But if it's, let's say, a baby horse or a young horse, you will have to train it to put the saddle on.
Awesome. And kind of a piggyback on that, I think we have one more question here. Caitlin C wants to know, when you first groomed your horse, was he jumpy and scared, or was he okay the first time?
He was okay. He's really a lazy horse, so as long as he gets to stand and not do anything and gets treats, he really doesn't care what you do.
Sounds like a big puppy dog.
He
Awesome. Well,
is. He
thank you
really
so
is.
much for sharing all of that with us. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Oh, we have one more question. Brooklyn Richards wants to know, how many horses do you have?
I actually ride at my grandparents' house, and they now have 9 horses because they just had a baby.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you have a great place to go and see all the horses that you'd like and be able to ride them and get them out and exercise. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure we'll have a few more questions from our students in a little bit, but I think we're gonna shift gears just a little bit, kids. We've seen some of the livestock side of agriculture, but maybe we'll take you to a totally different side and talk about our weights and measures department and some of the things that they do to help make sure that what you and I pay for when we go to make a transaction on a weight or a measure is correct and accurate. So one of my good friends, Dave, is here, and he's going to chat with us about what the weights and measures department does for us and some of the things that you guys might see on a day-to-day basis. So good morning, Dave. Thanks for being here, and let's get to chatting.
Hello, boys and girls. My name is Dave Singh. I'm with San Joaquin County, the Department of Agriculture and Weights and Measures. Um, Weights and measures. What we do is we make sure that everything that's bought and sold by a weight or a measure, meaning it's sold by pounds or ounces, kind of like meat and candy and things like that, and things that are sold by volume, like gasoline and milk and any other liquids that you see that somebody might dispense into your car and that you buy by the gallon or by the quart. So here are some of the things that we use to test the devices that the consumers, that's your mom and dad, that's your brother and sisters, that's your everybody that goes out and buys commodities, which is the things that we live on, um, by a weight or measure. There's actually kind of two different major areas. One is by weight and the other one is by volume. So the first thing I'd like to show you is some of the things that we use to test scales. So you might have seen something similar to this. This is not actually a legal for trade scale, but this is the ones that you typically see at the back of the grocery store by the vegetables and the fruits. that you would put your vegetables and fruit in here, and you would get an estimate of the weight. So when you take them up to the checkout stand, you kind of know about how much you're going to be charged. This is called a top loader scale, and it weighs in pounds and it gets down into ounces. This is an electronic scale. This is something that you might see in the front of the stores. The ones that you see at the larger grocery stores, they're a bit more sophisticated. They're built into the checkout stand. You've got a big screen up here. It shows you the weight. And as the cashier person takes your products across there, they'll slide it across a platform similar to this one, and it will display up on the display for you, and you'll know again that you are close to your estimate and that you're buying the amount that you want. And then what this thing does, it's called a price computing scale. You factor in a dollar amount for the pound, and it does the calculations for you. Kind of nice. They don't have to take out the calculator and calculate it all, or they don't have to do it in their head, because we don't always do it really well in our head, do we? But that's why we have these tools to work with, and it makes it easier for all of us to work with. So how do we test these things? Well, we use these items right here. These are test weights. These are 1 pound test weights right here. These are 2 pound test weights, and here's a 5. Okay, so what we would do is we'd put it on the scale, and we'd make sure that it weighs 5 pounds. These are some of the smaller weights, and we have test weights down to the point where you could weigh like 2 or 3 hairs on your head. And those types of scales you'll see in like pharmacies when they get down to the very small measurements that they make their medicines and prescriptions for you. So we need to make sure that they're accurate for the pharmacist, so they make sure that you're getting what you need. Here's some larger weights. This is a 25-pound test weight, and here's a 50-pound test weight. So these are some of the devices that we test, and here's some test weights that we actually use. Behind me is our big capacity test truck. What this thing does is it weighs all the big, large floor scales that you see at the recycling centers, and these are 1,000-pound test weights right here. We'll pick them out of this box with that crane right there, and that's called a knuckle boom crane, and it will set them on the scale for us. So we make sure that when you take recycling to redeem your money for the hard work that you're doing, we make sure that you guys get exactly what you are entitled to. So we are out there making sure that the scales that you use in your everyday life are accurate, so you get what you pay for. Okay, so here's another little scale up here. This is probably something that you might see at a recycling center, is this scale right here. They'll take like a garbage can or a container, put it on there, put your aluminum cans in there. But this is a kind of what you'd see at a recycling center. So the scale side of it, I have 2 people. One drives this big brand new truck here. This whole thing itself, we put on a big truck scale, and this becomes the weight itself. We can tell you what this whole truck weighs within 2 pounds. Okay, this cart over here, when we get bigger than the truck scales, bigger than weighing those big 80,000-pound trucks you see going down the road, are railroad scales. The railroad scales weigh up to 400,000 pounds. That's a lot. So if I were to say, put that in some sort of perspective that you might understand, a typical car, mid-sized car, weighs about 4,000 pounds. So you're thinking that a railroad scale would weigh 100 of them at one time. 400,000 pounds. We test those rail car or the actual scales with this item right here. We'll take this big knuckle boom, we'll load all the weights into this cart, and then this has a motor on it, and it's 6-wheel drive. If you can see that down there, that's 6-wheel drive. So we drive it around at a whopping 5 miles an hour. We can walk faster than this thing moves. So We drive it around real slow. We test the scales. We test the railroad scales. We make sure when those rail cars are rolling down the rail, we make sure that those cars, they're weighed going across the scale. It's called an in-motion weigher. It weighs it while it's going down the tracks. And we make sure that those in-motion weighers, those scales, are accurate. Okay, so that's kind of going from the small scales, the small little lab scales you see at a pharmacy, all the way up to railroad track scales. So that's kind of the weighing side of it. The liquid side. So what we're talking about is um, going to the gas station, filling your car up with that gas, and watching that dispenser ring off dollars and cents as your gallons are being pumped into your car. We inspect those devices. Everything that's has a liquid that is sold by gallons or quarts or pints or even the small little containers, all the way up to the big tanks. We make sure that whatever they fill those tanks with is accurate, the device itself. So these are some of the smaller, they're called provers. This is a 1 gallon prover. When you fill this up, it gets up to a 0 mark, and we know that when we put our coins into a, let's say, a water machine that you see outside of the supermarkets, you've seen the glacier water machines, they have water dispensers for people to buy that don't have good clean drinking water. What we do is we'll go and we'll put our coins in, 35, 45 cents, whatever it happens to be. We'll put this right underneath the spigot, and it will fill up exactly to that 0 mark. And what we're looking for is if that thing is reading minus or plus, we notify the vendor that owns the machine and they come out and repair it. If it's shorting the customer, if you ever get shorted the amount you're supposed to get for what you pay for, we take a little red tag and we tag that device off, and nobody can use it because we don't want other people to come in and get the same shortage that you received. Here's a 5 gallon prover. This is typically what we use for the gas stations. We take the gas nozzle out. We tell the attendant to turn the dispenser on. We pump 5 gallons. We make sure this is on a level surface and it comes to 0. If it comes to 0, we're good. If it's a little bit less, well, if it's just a little bit less, we're okay. If it's a little bit more, we're okay. But anything above and beyond, it's called a tolerance. If it falls within that range, that tolerance, we allow it, because not all devices are perfect. They get wear and tear. We'll do an annual inspection, typically at least once a year, which is an annual inspection, sometimes twice if we have to, and we'll test it with one of these guys. So we have pickup trucks that have 3 of these mounted in the back of the truck. So these little guys right here is what we use to do volume measures. The volume measures meaning the space that it contains. Okay, so a couple of things that you probably have seen are these 3 little items right here. So this is an electric meter. What this is it plugs into the side of your house, and as you're using electricity, whether it's watching television, anything that you plug into a receptacle that you're drawing power, this is going to measure it. And this is what the utility company, typically the PG&Es and the big companies, will send your parents a bill, and this is what they're registering it off of. They're determining how much kilowatt hours that you used. So when you hear your parents, hey, shut off that light, well, it's because it's being measured and you don't want to abuse it. Okay, so this one right here is called a vapor gas meter. And what this does is anybody that has a stove, when you turn on the burner and it creates a little flame in the stove, well, you have a gas stove, okay? So this is natural gas. This is bolted into the side of your house. It has pipes coming in both sides, and as the gas flows in from out of the ground from your supplier, goes through this meter, and then whatever you decide to use it for, whether it's your stove or your gas dryer or your heater, you might even have a hot water heater that's in the garage. If it's gas, if it uses natural gas, this registers the gas. They're going to send us the bill. Typically, they're together, and they tell you use this much gas and this much electricity, and you owe us this amount of money. The last item that you might have seen around your house, so you've got your gas to heat your home or to use your stove, you got electricity to turn your lights on, we need water. We got to have water. This device right here is called a water meter. And typically where you'll find this is if it's in a house, they're typically under the ground. There's a box that's mounted in the ground. It's a utility box, and inside that utility box, you'll find this thing piped in from the city coming in and going out to your house. And as you use water, this thing's going to go, the dial's going to go around. It's going to go around like this, and it's going to ring up how much water that you use. So when we talk about conserving water, even that little drip of water that might be coming out of the faucet or that toilet that just keeps kind of running a little bit and then you can hear it fill up. This registers every drip of water that goes through those pipes. So we want to make sure that when you're using water, that you shut off those spigots and you don't abuse water, because that's one thing that we need to conserve in California. So these are items that you might have seen around your home. Volume measures, measures that we use for testing our scales, all the way from small scales up to the large stuff. And again, what we do as weights and measures inspectors, we go out and we test all the devices that are used to buy and sell. If it's a meter that's they don't use to buy and sell, we don't test it. It's not necessary because there is no transaction there, and that's what we're looking for. The word is transaction. Anyhow, I'm Dave. I have 4 inspectors that go out with me. We all do our different things, and that's kind of our weights and measures program.
I don't know about you guys, but I sure learned a thing or two. Thank you so much, Dave. That was very interesting. And I'm not alone in that. You have a lot of questions to answer from our students. So we're going to do as many as we can get through, okay? All right, so I'm going to come at you quick.
Okay.
We have Manny wants to know, how long have you been doing your job?
Good morning, Manny. I've been doing my job for a little over 28 years now. I did 20 years in another county, and I've been here in San Joaquin County for 8.
Awesome. Joseph wants to know, do the cashiers at the pharmacy weigh the pills?
Okay, so at most pharmacies, they do pill counting. If you get a prescription, they typically are 30 pills. So those pills are already weighed out at the manufacturer who developed them. But at the pharmacy, they're usually just counting them up for you to get in your pill, in your prescription when you go pick them up. So they're just done by count.
Gotcha. Okay, another question for you. Emily from our Zoom account wants to know, would like to know, how did you learn about scales and the law?
So good question. So years ago, when I got out of the service, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I met a gentleman at a gas station that I was working part-time at, and he came out to test the gas pumps. And I was kind of interested on what he was doing, and it turned out that it was a friend of mine's uncle that was teaching me a little bit about what he does for weights and measures. And it turns out the school, the entry-level school that I went to for metrology, it sounds like, the weather meteorology, but it's actually called metrology. I was very interested in it because we do a lot of different things. So it's something that you're not doing every day, the same thing over and over. So it made it kind of interesting. And that's what got me interested in doing weights and measures. That gentleman piqued my interest enough to do a little bit of investigation, and found out that it was all the things that I love to do.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you really enjoy your job. We've actually had 3 or 4 students ask if you like it. So you may have some new folks to train and mentor, it sounds like, in our 3rd grade students.
Well, that sounds great, because I'll tell you what, it is a very fun job. You get to do a lot of different things. You spend a little time in the office, you spend a lot of time in the field. You get to do some law enforcement side of it. And when I mean law enforcement, it's more of it's called the civil, not criminal. So we're not police officers, but we do, we are what's called a regulatory agency. So we're a regulatory official. And we are sworn in as officers. So when we go out to do our inspections and we have to cite the law, we want to make sure that we do it right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dave. We appreciate the time. I think we're going to jump to a new subject, students. This is something that we've never actually had at one of our AgVenture events before. You are the first. So we're going to talk to Katie from California Farmland Trust. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about what we can do to preserve our farmland and what California Farmland Trust does on their side. So good morning, Katie. Thank you for being here. And we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I'm with California Farmland Trust. Today, we want to teach you a little bit more about the importance of understanding where your food comes from and how little farmland there really is to grow all the food that we need to feed a growing world and a growing population. So we want you to think of this orange just like you would think of the planet Earth. And we're going to cut up this orange to really demonstrate our point of how much land we can use to grow food. So the materials that you'll need for this project are a cutting board, a knife that's safe to use, a plastic knife will work or whatever is safe, an orange, and some paper towels are good to have on hand because the oranges can get a little bit messy. So we're going to start with cutting our orange into quarters. So you'll start with just cutting it in half. And then once you have 2 halves, you will slice it again. So you'll have 4 equal quarters. And if we're working on fractions, we would have 4 quarters, which each represent 25% of a whole. So we're going to take 3 of these quarters and set them aside. These 3 quarters represent all of the water on Earth's surface. Obviously, we can't grow food on the water and in the ocean. This 25% represents all the land that is remaining. We're going to take this quarter and cut it into 4 equal pieces again. And again, we are going to set aside 3 of the 4 pieces. These 3 pieces represent land that is rocky, desert, swamps, and land that's just not good for growing our food. So we're going to set this aside. And again, if this was 25%, 25%, 25%, so that was 75%, this was 25%. If we divide it by 4, we end up with approximately 6.25% left. This is land that, in theory, would be suitable for actually growing food, but it's not. Once we cut the peel off, we're down to 3%. This 3% is all of the land that we have on planet Earth to grow all of the food we need to feed you, me, and everyone else. So if you think of it in relation to this orange, the farmland that we have is important. It's important to you and it's important to me. And it's important that we all do our part to be good stewards of the land, to take care of our farmland and do what we can to make sure that that land exists for generations to come. If you're interested in learning more about this activity, please visit our website, California Farmland Trust, at www.cafarmtrust.org. Thank you.
Good morning, Katie. Thank you so much. Some of our students learned a lot and have a couple of questions. One, they want to know if that was your dog in the video.
Great question. Unfortunately, it wasn't my dog. It was the person that we were filming at that had the orange orchard. It was their dog, and it was very sweet, and it also enjoyed tasting some of the oranges that were on the table.
Good to know. I hope that puts those students' minds at ease. A couple of personal questions. Kaylee wants to know, how long have you worked at California Farmland Trust? And Lily wants to know if you like your job.
Great questions. I've actually worked at California Farmland Trust for just over a year now. So I started in December of 2019. And while 2020 was definitely different for all of us, I enjoy my job. I appreciate the importance of farmland and agriculture. So being able to be involved in the industry, being able to take an active role in preserving farmland and helping to educate our youth like you is something that's important to me. And so yes, I definitely enjoy my job and the opportunity to work in agriculture.
Awesome. Well, thank you. A couple of our students are asking for a reminder of how much of the world's land is suitable for farmland. Could you provide them that reminder?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the blunt answer is 3% of all the land that we have in the world. So again, 75% is water. Think of our oceans, lakes. When you think of a globe, think of all the water that you see. 22% is land that's rocky, swampy, mountains, and land that's just not good for farming. And that remaining 3% is all that we have to grow the food for my family, your family, and the rest of the world.
Awesome. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, if those of us who are following along on our worksheet, it would be only blank would be 3%. So those of you guys following along on the worksheet, we have a couple more questions here. Let's get to this one before we have to move on. Ashley Collins has a student who wants to know, how long does it take to grow an orange?
Oh gosh, that is actually a great question. There's a lot of oranges. If you drive down the road where you see orange orchards, there's a lot kind of deeper into the San Joaquin Valley. You'll see that they are on the trees right now. They're becoming ripe. They're getting sweeter by the day, and soon will be certainly hitting your grocery stores. Once those are harvested, obviously they take care of the trees, and the next crop will start. If you're looking for an exact answer on an orange, I would encourage you to Google and learn more about citrus and growing oranges and the different varieties and all of the elements that go into that.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. I think we're going to leave it there for that. Oh, Joseph has an orange tree in his backyard, so that's good to know.
Yay.
Awesome. I hope you get some nice, ripe, juicy oranges, Joseph. We are going to move on to our next presenter, and then hopefully we'll circle back for some more questions for you, Katie, but I want to make sure we get a chance to see all of our presenters. So now we're going to go back to some of our livestock. I know that that's really important to our being able to have food and fiber and eat some of our delicious meals. And something that you guys are always super interested in our events is some of our livestock. So we're going to talk to Candy from the Mid-Valley Cowbells, and she's actually going to take us to her ranch and show us around a little bit and kind of talk about what they do to provide affordable, safe, abundant food supply. So good morning, Candy. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to hearing what you're going to share.
Hi, my name's Candy Peterson, and you are at the Cook Ranch. We're down at where we process the cattle. We have a commercial herd here, which means that here's a lot of different kinds of breeds of cattle. And a commercial herd is not a herd that is registered. That means it has all kinds of different mixtures of breeds. Cattle were not in the United States. They were brought here from other countries. So a lot of my cattle are Angus, black Angus. There's also a red Angus nowadays that became a real breed in 1954. Hereford is a very popular breed. They came from England. You'll see Texas Longhorns. I consider them more a sport breed than a beef breed. And this is a shorthorn. I have several in my herd. We have Charolais, which came from France. They're nice, big, beefy animals. Here's a limousine that looks like that red Angus, but it's a different breed. It's also from France. This is a Simmental, and it has its roots from Switzerland. And I have Black Angus mostly in my herd. So these are the kinds of breeds that you'll see in our area. You would be able to recognize many of them. Even these, there's a few people that have these. They use these to rope because they're a lot more athletic than the rest of them. The rest of them just kind of walk and eat and don't make too much trouble. This guy's a whole nother story. So they like to run and jump and turn, and those ropers really like that. The one who catches one of those in the quickest time makes a lot of money. So that's what I call a sport breed. Okay, you're in the area where we have a chute. The chute, we have to have some kind of working equipment that'll keep us safe and keep the animals safe. So this is what we use. This one is particularly functionable because we can weigh an animal when it comes in the chute. Here, let's turn it on. I just got to hold it, turn it on. It says hello. And then when an animal comes in this chute, you open it up, you open the back gate, and the animal comes through. When he gets in this place, you close the gate, and to keep him still, you're going to want to shut the sides, okay? There's also a head gate, and the head gate will catch his head and keep him from moving too, because sometimes we put ear tags in their ears, and if a vet is working with the young females, he'll want to tattoo that ear to let everybody know that she's had a certain shot. Why do we have this? Because sometimes we have to get, well, twice a year we give them shots. And a shot, this is a repeater syringe. That means you can give more than one shot in a go. So you're going to put your needle on like this. Then you're going to draw your medicine like this out of the bottle, okay? And then you tell it how much medicine, okay? If it's 2, there's 2. If it's 2.5, if it's half, okay? This one goes all the way up to 2, I think. I've got other ones that are bigger, and you can put more medicine at a time. So here, I don't know if you can see, it measures out the medicine. So when the animal is in here and captured, so it can't move and you can't get hurt and it can't get hurt, in order to give it those sides come down, in order to give it a shot, they're going to go right in the neck, okay? So it'd be like this, and you're right here, you give it the shot, you're done, okay? There's usually about 4 different shots that we give. One of them helps get the worms out of their tummy, which is real important because they eat in the dirt. So they're ingesting worm eggs all the time. When those worm eggs hatch, because it's a perfect place in their tummy for those worms to grow, we don't want those worms to grow. We want them to get rid of those worms. So we give them a special shot that will kill those worms, and then they'll expel them. That means they'll poop them out. So shots are important. When you went to school, you got shots. All the calves here get shots, okay? Calves are the babies, cows are the moms, bulls are the dads. Mostly what we have here are yearlings. That means they're almost a year old. So when they're almost a year old, they're sold and taken from their moms, and they come here. Most of the animals that we buy come from really cold country, so there's not enough feed for them to survive in that country. So we buy them and bring them here because now we've got grass. So they'll be here until about May, and they'll double their weight. So they're phenomenal creatures. They grow about 20 pounds a week, if you can imagine. If your mom had to put 20 pounds a week on you, she would be crazy. She'd be at the store all the time. Okay, so we don't just give them shots when they're in the chute. Sometimes when they come in, you have to show ownership. The way we show ownership is with the brand. This, as you see here, I have an electrical outlet, and this goes right into the electrical outlet, and then it gets red hot. And right now, the animals are all really, really furry. So we take this as a clipper and we clip the extra hair off to make it nice and smooth. And then we burn this. You'll take this down and you take all the hair off. And then this is in the electricity and you burn it right onto the animal. I know you're going to wonder if that hurts. No. Well, I can't say it doesn't hurt, but I can say that their skin is so much thicker than ours, they don't feel it like we would. So they're a lot different than we are. Their skin is a lot thicker. Okay. So this is the processing area. Everything that comes in has to have a brand, has to have shots, so that we can show ownership as well as make sure that once they go out in the field that they're going to survive. We also know how much weight each field will put on an animal. We have what's called sorting gates. So if you'll look at these gates, now I opened that gate so those animals, when they're finished here, they're going to go right into this corral. Okay, if I want to, here, I'm going to leave that there. If I want them to go, if they're going to go out in the far fields, I don't know if you could see that. If they are going to go out in the far field, then that gate is there. Then I can shut that gate. And if I need them to go, this is what we call the hospital pen. If I need just a few animals to go in here that I'm going to concentrate on, maybe they need more feed, maybe they need some time to get to feel better before they can go out on their own. So they're going to go in there and that will separate them from the other ones. Okay, when we receive the cattle, they come in these big trucks. They come all times of day and night. They start about November the 1st. And the trucks will let them on, and then they'll go back around to the scale. Every animal has to be weighed when they come in. We don't do it one at a time because we have about 5,000 yearlings here. So we bring them in groups and get an average weight. We need to know that weight because when they come in the trucks, there's a certain amount that they will lose. So we need to know exactly how much they weigh when they got here. That way we can measure how much they weigh later in the fall when we bring them all back in and reweigh them to see how they're doing. Everything goes by weight. If an animal is not thriving, it won't gain weight. So we want to know what their weights are at all times. Moving them. Okay. There's couples ways that we move them through the chutes and into the tub. This one is one. I don't know if you can hear it, but it scares them. They don't like that sound. It kind of rattles them, so they'll move away from it. The calves are really receptive to a flag. If they see a flag or hear that sound, then they'll move away. The main thing you want to do with animals is get them so that they'll move away from you. They're huge animals and you need to be careful. That's why we use such big equipment to work with animals, is because they're huge. Some bulls that we have here weigh 2,000 pounds, which is a ton. So you have to be careful. That's the Cook Ranch. We've been here 4 generations and almost 100 years.
100 years? That's a long time to be doing anything, no less raising livestock. Thank you so much, Candy, for taking us out and showing us around. We have some very intrigued third graders on our hands, and I'd like to have you answer some of their questions if we can. Candy, can you hear us okay? Beautiful. Okay. Let's see here. So it looks like Jaden and Alex wants to know which breed is your favorite. Oh, Candy, hold on 1 second. It doesn't look like we can hear you. Can you hit that button on your headset for us? The round one, the blue parrot button. Let's try that. I don't know that we can hear her. So Candy, let's go ahead and switch out your headset real quick. We're just going to switch that out. There are a couple of questions on here that I'm actually able to answer for you. Go ahead and switch that headset out, guys. We have some who would like to know if you milk these cows. And so for those third graders out there, there's actually two types of cattle. There's beef cattle that we use for meat and dairy cattle that we use to produce milk, the milk that you drink that you'd go get from the grocery store. And the type of cattle at Candy's Ranch are beef cattle, so they're used primarily for meat purposes. So there's been some questions about how much do you milk them and how much milk do they produce. These are not those types of cows. Well, those would have been the dairy cows that you would have seen in your presentation. So let's go back. Candy, can you hear us?
They've got you.
Candy.
Go to your name.
Okay, I think we've got, is she back?
She's on Katie's.
Oh, unmute Katie, guys. Let me tell. Just 1 second, guys. We're gonna have we are going to unmute her. It looks like her microphone went down, which happens when we're doing live production. So give us 1 second. We're gonna use Katie's headset here. We're gonna get Katie unmuted. All right, can you give us, it looks like we have you unmuted. Can you talk to us, Candy? All right, I think we're good to go. Okay, can you guys hear okay? We're just gonna do a sound check on our end. Be patient with us. All right, Katie, can you talk to us? Or excuse me, Candy, can you talk to us? Okay, we're gonna work on that one, guys. So that's my apologies. We're gonna move on and we'll come back because you guys have lots of questions for Candy. So we're gonna move on and we're gonna talk to Erin. So Erin is actually from Mosquito Abatement. So we're gonna move, change subjects a little bit. We're actually gonna talk about pests. I know that may seem a little bit counterintuitive when it's here in the winter and they're not as problematic for us. But Erin has a great message about mosquitoes and what we can do now. So good morning, Erin. Thanks for being here. And let's see what you have to say and how we can be safe.
Hi, I'm Aaron DeVincenzi from San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control District. How many of you have been bitten by a mosquito before? Did you know that mosquitoes bite in order to use your blood as food for their eggs? The problem is they can also carry disease. Female mosquito bites. This is what her head would look like if we put it up underneath a microscope. Many eyes are called compound eyes. The antenna she uses for feeling and hearing, and there's actually 7 parts to her mouth. She has a lip that folds back. She has 6 parts that go into your skin. 4 of them are little scissors that make a really quick cut. I'm going to hold these up here for you to take a look at them. These would be like stylets or little scissors. Then she takes the other 2 and she uses these as a straw. And she draws the blood up between the 2 of these, but the problem is your blood is too thick for her to drink. So what she does is something really gross. She puts saliva in your blood, making your blood thinner and easier for her to drink. But if she's carrying a disease like malaria, West Nile virus, dengue, Zika, all those are diseases that can make us sick and some people even die from them. So our goal in talking to you today about mosquitoes is basically dump out standing water around your house. That keeps mosquitoes from developing and it keeps you and your family from being sick. So the female mosquito bites, she lays an egg raft on the water at about 150 to 300 eggs per egg raft, up to 4 times in her 3-week lifespan. This would be an example. Female mosquito would lay the eggs on the water. The eggs aren't in here, but they're small, about half the size of the eraser of a pencil. Then the larva stage, which looks like a little stick in the water, and then the pupa stage where they're hatching off the water as an adult mosquito. That pupa stage is like the cocoon stage. So in order to stop this from happening, we need you to look around your home, looking for things like maybe old tires that are filled with water. We have an example of an old tire here. It actually looks like there might be some egg rafts on the surface of that water from that tire. So something like this, you would want to have your parents get rid of properly at a dump, drain it out, or at least put it into a shed or a garage or a barn, being as we're here on Ag Day. Buckets like this, one bucket can produce enough mosquitoes to bother an entire city block of people. So a bucket like this, you would want to take it and basically dump that bucket out, get rid of that standing water, and that's going to help keep you from being bitten by mosquitoes and keep them from annoying you around your home. And then the last thing we want to encourage too is if you have a swimming pool that's green or you have a pond without any other fish, these are mosquito fish. Why do we call them that? Because they eat mosquito larvae, up to 100 larvae per fish per day. And we'll use them in a green pool, not a pool that you swim in that's clean, but a pool that looks like a swamp. Or we'll put them in a animal water trough on a farm, or a number of different areas these will work in. You could get them free. Your parents can call us. We'll even deliver them out free to you. So now you know mosquitoes grow around your house. They grow around farms. We need you to help by getting rid of standing water around your home and doing those things to maintain water so you don't have mosquitoes developing. I hope you have a great day here at AgVenture, and make sure you look for water around your home. Fight the Bite from San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control District.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm relieved to know that only half of the mosquito population can bite me. Who knew that only the females can bite? We have a couple of questions. Joseph would like us to know that he's never been bit by a mosquito, which I say to that, congratulations, because I've never had that happen more than a summer. So congratulations on that. But we have some students who want to know the fish that you have, the mosquito fish, why can they not be with other fish?
Our mosquito fish tend to be fairly aggressive, so they nip the fins of some of the other fish in the water. Um, some fish they can be around, but we don't recommend mixing them though. They do a wonderful job though in eating mosquito larvae and pupa and keeping populations down in ornamental ponds, animal water troughs on farms, and that sort of thing. They're free to the public, and we even deliver them out free as long as it's within San Joaquin County, city and county.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Jalissa actually has a question over on our Zoom feed. She wants to know, if you throw water at a mosquito, does it die?
If you throw water at a mosquito, I guess if you got enough water on it, yeah, it wouldn't be able to fly, that's for sure. But actually what we're wanting you to do is to dump out standing water around your home so that mosquitoes don't develop and they're not flying and biting people, which then could carry disease. So dump out that standing water.
Gotcha. Okay, we have another question here. It looks like they're wondering if they, oh, Sophia wants to know, new question just came in. So Sophia wants to know, how long have you been doing your job?
Oh, I've been at this job for...
and Marley wants to know if you ever been bit.
Okay, so two questions. First of all, I've been at this job for about 27 years now. I grew up on a farm and exposed to mosquitoes most of my life, and yes, I have been bitten by mosquitoes. At one point in time, I used to raise mosquitoes in a laboratory, and I was bitten 20, 30 times a day while I was raising them in the laboratories. We do that in order to show you what mosquitoes look like, which would be in this container. We also use those mosquitoes to test and make sure that the chemicals that we're using to get rid of mosquitoes outside actually work.
I didn't even know that that was a thing. Wow, labs for mosquitoes. Who knew? Brooklyn Richards has a question. How many babies does a female have?
One female mosquito can lay up to 4 egg rafts in a lifetime, and there's up to 300 eggs per raft. So potentially one female mosquito in the warmer weather could have up to 1,200 young.
Wow, that's a lot of young. And then final question, it looks like we have over from our YouTube feed. Do mosquitoes like specific blood types?
Well, there's been some studies on that, but normally mosquitoes are attracted to your breath, your carbon dioxide that you breathe out. So we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, some chemicals on your skin and so forth, and the heat from your body are attractants. Some people claim to be bitten more than others, but actually, most of us are probably being bitten. We just don't show a reaction to the bite, which would be a bump. Normally, people have that reaction.
Interesting. Good to know. Well, thank you, Aaron. That's really informative. I learn something new every day. I think we're going to try to go back to Candy now. If we can get our gimbal operator, go back to Candy. Let's see. Candy, can you hear us?
Not yet.
Can
No.
you hear? Oh, I hear you. Yep.
Oh,
There
you
you
do?
go. I do hear you. Okay.
Oh, I'm on the
Technology is
phone.
great and only when it works. So awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And we have several questions. So are you ready for them?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Jaden and Alex both want to know, what is your favorite breed?
My favorite breed is probably the Black Angus. I have more of those than any other breed. But I'm whatever's hardy in our area is what I will buy or raise.
Okay, good to know. It looks like Presentation School wants to know, do different cows need different shots?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, the older ones have a different series of shots that they're given, and the younger ones have a different series of shots that they're given, specific to their age and their weight. When they're little, we try to give them shots that will prevent diseases that we know of in our area, but the moms only need a booster to help that milk give them really good information, really good nutrition so that they won't get certain diseases, and they'll pass it on to their babies.
Oh, God, interesting. And then how many shots do the calves get every year?
We do it twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, and they'll get probably 4, but 2 are only for diseases, and then they'll get a shot with vitamins, and then they'll also get a shot for the worms. But those are 4 shots per animal.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know. And then final question for now. We have a lot of questions wanting to know what your dog's name is.
I think in the film you saw Tippy Two Socks, and she's helps me work on the ranch. If there's some place I can't get, she can. She's a lot faster than I am, and she really helps me out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Candy. We're going to keep rolling here so we can get all of our presentations under our belt, and we'll come back if we have time. So thank you very much. So we've covered a couple of animal things. We've covered a couple of pest topics. So I think now we're going to move on to something a little bit different. What many of you don't know is some of the unknown dangers or things that agriculturalists have to take good care of and take note of when they're out working on their farming operations, and some of the gas and electric lines that they work around. So we have a friend of mine named Ron, and he is here sitting next to Rob to talk to us a little bit about electricity and how we can be safe around that. He is representing PG&E today. So good morning. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to hear about some of your safety tips.
Hi, my name is Ron DeLucchi from PG&E, and I'm here today to show you about the dangers of electricity. It's a safe product, but it can be very dangerous if we don't pay attention to it. I'm wearing special gloves, and I want to show you what we do first before we actually put them on. We get the glove like this, and I inspect it by a visual look here to make sure there's no cuts or anything in the glove. And this one looks okay. And then I give it a roll test, just like you would a balloon, to make sure the air is in there. If it wasn't, it would all fold like a balloon would. But looks real good, and it's holding air. Then, in addition to that, I add water in there to make sure there's no leakage. And after that's done, dump out the water, I turn the glove inside out, and I do the same type of testing. Then I take the other glove, and that's also tested. Then when I'm satisfied that that's all done, I put on my regular glove here, and we're all set. Because what happens here is that this glove is protecting this from any damage, and then this glove is saving my life. And that's the way it is. On this electric display that you see, it's just like a miniature little town, just like most of your neighborhoods. So I'm going to turn on this light, and that light being on, that's telling me that we have power in this. A lot of times somebody comes up to me after I shut it off and he said, "Can we touch this?" How do you know that the light bulb didn't burn out? You don't take any chances because this is very dangerous. So first of all, I have here is a man on a roof taking down an old TV antenna. Even though we don't use TV antennas much any longer, they're still on roofs. And they'll get up there and he's taking it down and he's not paying attention to what he does. And then all of a sudden, you see that happen. Boy, you can imagine what would happen there. Now, the second thing that I wanted to show you is the tree. The tree, we have tree companies come and they inspect and look at all the lines constantly all the time. And if anything's even near our wires, the tree companies cut the branches and make sure it's safe because we don't want to see any kind of danger. Say this tree for some reason was not trimmed and it was overlooked or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden this wind starts to blow and then you have a case like this with a branch. And can you imagine being in that tree when that would happen? Boy, that'd be very, very dangerous. So that's why we have patrols on this to make sure it's always safe for everyone and make sure there's no fires at all. The next thing we have farm workers. And a lot of your areas here where the farms take place, the farm workers go out there and they have irrigation pipe. So they can put the pipe in the ground and get to the plants and whatever they're planting so it gets water to them. Well, times people pick up those lines and they shake them out because if you left the pipe outside overnight, bugs or mice or something might get into them. So they shake it out before putting it together and putting it in the ground. But when they do, they're not looking around them. You always look around for any kind of hazard. And here we have a man that's going to shake out the pipe, but he's not paying attention. He's right under electric lines. And all of a sudden, look at there. Look at his feet. That's what could happen. And it certainly wouldn't be pleasant to see anything like that or that happen. And I've been on a lot of cases where it has been. Now, over here, we have the police department. They come out, or the fire department, and it's usually the fire department that comes out to the scenes. They're the first responders, and they keep everybody away from the scene. That's their primary duty, is making sure people do not get hurt. Now, in this particular scenario, the wire fell down. Somebody ran into a pole or whatever it could cause to fall down. It fell on the car. And here we have somebody go over to try to help the people out of the car. If you're in the car, stay in the car. Because what would happen is if you don't, you come over here and I'm going to grab this guy here and he touches that car. Whoa, you can see what would happen. He's standing on the ground. It's on the ground. So anyway, with that, touching it like that, big, big problems. Now, if a line falls on your car in real life, stay in the car. What's protecting you in the car, which wasn't this man was standing on the ground and he touched the car. But the people inside were fine because what was saving their life was the rubber tires. He wasn't standing on rubber tires, he was on the ground. So stay in the car. There's always help, 911 to call and things like this, but if anybody comes up near the car, stay away. So don't have anybody come near that car. Stay in the car, wait till help comes, and that's the safest way to do it. Don't take any chances. Now here we have a backhoe, and the backhoe is digging because a lot of our lines are not up here anymore. They're all underground with the gas and telephone and everything else that's in there. And you always call before you dig. And if you don't call before you dig, you can see a little case here where the wires pulled out of the ground because the backhoe here was digging. Nobody was called out. It wasn't marked, so you can't see it. So that is very fortunate if he did not get hurt on a case like that. So he again, rubber tires, you stand the equipment, you want to stay right where you are and always call before you dig. I can't put enough emphasis on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's always important to note that safety is our first priority, and so we always need to call before we dig. We have a couple of students who have some questions for you.
Okay.
Cruz Lopez wants to know if you've ever been electrocuted.
Well, thank gosh I have not been electrocuted. By the way, the word electrocuted means that they touched something and they died as a result of it. Electrical contact is when you get a shock. So there's a difference between the two. And I got a little shock now and then, just like you would at home if you're not careful. But that's about it because we have a lot of safety equipment we use, the gloves, like I showed you, and everything else to keep us safe and keep that from happening.
Oh, well, that's good. We're glad to hear that you haven't had that either. Nicole Sampson from Presentation School wants to know what is in electricity that makes it so dangerous?
Well, what electricity, why it is so dangerous is because it always wants to go to ground. And it's power, it's a source that, for example, you take a tree and it goes to the tree, it goes through the wood, and it always wants to get down to the ground through the roots and to the water. And that's where the contact is made. Just like if we're standing on the ground right now and we touch something, it would go all the way through us, through our feet, right to the ground. So electricity goes to ground, and it's just a thing of nature. That's all the energy uh, that's there. And then at PG&E, what we do, we can control that where we distribute it properly wherever it needs, so we can give even more electricity or less, whatever the case may be.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Ashley Collins has a student who wants to know, how long have you been doing your job?
Well, I've been with PG&E for 37 years, and I started with PG&E right after high school. And when I got to PG&E, I says, you know, this is a pretty good job. I think I'll stay here. So I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your safety tips. I know I learned something, and I think our students did as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We have one last presentation for you guys, and I'm very excited to talk to one of our friends over at Orchard Right. We're going to talk to Rob and see some equipment today, and some of the equipment that maybe you haven't seen before, but it's used a lot in our area. So hi, Rob. Thanks for joining us, and can't wait to hear a little bit about your shaker.
Good morning. My name is Rob Allen. I work for Orchard Right. We are manufacturers of agricultural tree shakers. We shake trees such as almond trees, walnut trees, pistachios, and pecans. Maybe you've seen them all in the store. Very yummy to eat. A little review of what's going on with this machine. We have a front bay here. We keep extra things in here like pads that we can swap out. So when things wear, we can replace easily and quickly. This is a working machine. It works very hard. It violently shakes, so it needs a lot of maintenance. We grease all our points. We're pointed out by the yellow stickers. So the farmer must do those every day to maintain and make this machine last. We walk around here. This is the business end of our shaker. It is our head. In a little bit, I'll show you how it works, but it clamps onto a tree. It violently shakes it, and the nuts come off and fall to the ground. All right, we come around here, get another view of the shaker head on this side. It's run hydraulically, which means liquid flows through hoses and makes a motor turn. All right, this is our one side of our engine compartment. Won't get too technical, but we have a hydraulic tank, battery. We have a DEF which is diesel emission fluid, helps control the ugly NOx that come out of our motors and keep the air clean. And we have a fuel tank. All right. Come around here, the backside, we have to keep this thing cool. So we have a very, very big radiator in the back here with an auto reversing fan that keeps everything nice and cool. It's a very large one, holds a lot of fluid. All right, come around here to the other side of our engine compartment. All right, we have a 50-gallon water tank. And what this does, it pumps water to the head. And when you clamp on a tree, it has water in there, which keeps the pads cool. If you didn't have this water, they'd heat up and melt. You ever seen a melted piece of rubber on the ground? That's what would happen. We have a very large air cleaner. It's a very dusty environment. And we have to keep the engine air clean as it goes in to make the engine last a long time. So I have a very large air cleaner. All right, come around here to the cab. This is where the operator sits. It's a one-man operation. We have a nice radio that they can hook their phone to and listen to great music while they operate the machine, so you don't get too crazy in there. It has air conditioning to keep the farmer cool, or heat to keep them warm in the winter. I will turn the machine on. It has to warm up for a second here, and it is computer controlled. Everything's done by a joystick, which is at your fingertips. So it's very simple to use. Just a little practice and you can be an expert. I'll go ahead and start it up. Okay. It is ready to go. I don't know about you, but I think I would want to see this thing, how this thing works. So we'll wait for the camera to come around to the head and I'll start it up. All right. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed this. I've enjoyed talking about it, and have a great day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We have a couple of questions. Abby wants to know if shakers ever break down.
Oh, all the time. They violently shake themselves apart. There's no doubt about it. So daily maintenance is almost required. Cracks in the frame, the welds will break. Lots and lots of maintenance needs to be done every day on these machines.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We have another question. One of our students wants to know if the joystick is the same thing that they use in their video games.
It's very, very similar. It's 4 positions: forward, back, side, and left and right. And then you have 2 scrolling wheels, one for extending and retracting the arm and one for clamping and opening the arm. So it's very, very similar. If you can play video games, you can operate one of these machines.
Maybe we'll have some future agriculturalists on our hands.
I hope so.
Caitlin has one more question for us, and then I think we should show them the video of the shaker in action shaking some trees. So
Great.
Let's get to Caitlin's question. It says, have branches ever fallen onto the car? And if so, how many?
Oh, they fall all the time, mainly the small ones because they break off because it violently shakes the tree. I've been in the machine where I've shaken an older tree and it's actually shaken it out of the ground and fallen on the machine. And it takes a little backhoe to get it off so we can keep going. So yeah, it happens all the time.
Wow, it sounds like quite the process.
Yeah, it is.
Sure
a lot of fun.
I'm sure that we have a lot of third graders on our hands right now that are thinking, how do they get themselves into one of those pieces? I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure our students would like to see that in action in the orchard. So I think we have some video footage of that we're able to play for you guys right now.
Fantastic. Good.
Well, I mean, to say it shakes it violently would be an understatement. That's
This is
pretty
true.
cool.
It is.
Well, thank you for being here. We are running short on time in the rest of our presentation, so we are going to go ahead and just ask a couple more questions. My first question is for Cadence. So Cadence, over with our horses and San Joaquin Horsemen's Association. Cadence, one of our students, actually several of our students, want to know, how big is Tonto and how old is he?
Tonto is 9 years old and he's about 15 and 1 hands. So if I'm standing up, his back is probably like right here to me.
Wow, that's pretty big. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a pretty big animal. And someone else wants to know, what kind of treats does he like?
I actually brought treats with me, and he really likes apples and carrots. So these are apple flavored treats. They're just kind of little nuggets that look like this.
Kind of like a dog treat, but for your horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. That's cool. Thank you for being here, Cadence. Our next question is for Dave. We had a couple, actually lots of our students, Dave, were very concerned about your back, and they wanted to know if using all of those weights hurts your back.
Yeah, it can. That's why you always want to learn good lifting techniques. And obviously you hear most of the time, lift with your legs. You want to keep your back straight. So yes, we deal with a lot of test weights, and lifting correctly is the key to that, keeping your back in one piece.
Awesome. Well, I have time for one more question, and the question right in front of me is for Aaron. So Aaron from Mosquito Abatement, one of our students has a question, and it says, does the ground have to be puddled or just wet for females to lay eggs?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on the species. We have some species normally you would find in agricultural areas that'll lay their eggs on damp ground. And those eggs can actually stay there for up to 5 years until water hits them. But in order for them to hatch, they do need water, not just dampness. For the mosquitoes that are around your home, they're going to need water also. So just a damp lawn or something around your house isn't going to produce mosquitoes, but definitely if there was a puddle, a bucket, that sort of thing, that's where you're going to find the egg browse.
Awesome. Look at all those critters. Well, thank you guys. I want to just thank all of our volunteers for being here, all of our presenters. You guys did a great job rolling with the punches. I know this is different, and technology and not seeing students in front of you, it's a totally different experience. But just for everybody here, we had over 3,000 students registered from Stockton and Lincoln Unified School Districts. And I'm sure that they learned something. I know I learned something. So I just want to thank you guys so much for your time, your energy, your efforts. We want to thank San Joaquin County, the Agricultural Commissioner's Office, the Specialty Crop Block Grant, as well as all of our independent sponsors and supporters of our program. It means a lot to be able to provide this educational opportunity for our students, whether it's virtual or in person. So we hope that you guys had a great day. If you want any more information on AgVenture, if you want to see our presentations that we've talked about, feel free to go to our website, www.sjcagventure.com. Our next virtual trip will be to an almond orchard during blossom. Get to see some of that and talk about bees and pollination. The date for that will be sent out to you. We hope that you'll join us, and we hope that you guys had a great day and enjoyed your adventure in agriculture.